defending, I think, is like.
People deluded, I'm back again.
Come on, Ian, bro. Come on. Like the big man Ian Wright just said there, people deluded, I'm back again. First things first, appreciative to all my regular viewers. You know, I really appreciate the support. I'm very appreciative of the platform that we've amassed here. 52,000 subscribers and counting. Make sure you're subscribing if you haven't. Also, make sure you're commenting when this video premieres, either in the live chat or obviously in the comments after if you're watching it on the rerun, or both. Smash the like button, boost the YouTube algorithm, check out the YouTube playlist. One love to everyone who's watching the ads as well, because it makes all the difference. And as I said, one love. Now, obviously, you know, it's silly season. We're going to get linked with a lot of transfers and a lot of players. Some are more realistic than others, but let's go over it. Let me share my screen, people. As I said, smash the like button. First thing, I've copied and pasted an article from The Athletic where it's touched on Ramsdale getting a new deal, William Saliba progress, I think vaguely Charlie Patino, etc., etc. We've, you know, Mudryk, Bennacer. Obviously, you're seeing the title of this video. So there, man, enough rambling, enough waffling. You know, let me roll up my sleeves and it's business time, man. Let's crack on. First things first, Google Doc sheet. And what I need to do is zoom in a bit because I can't barely see it. Again, this is copy and pasted from The Athletic. For some reason on this laptop, on my other one, I can sign in, but I can't sign in here, and it is what it is. When a significant first team contract is this even the start? Let's make sure you see. Sorry, people. It's actually here. So sorry. In early November, Gabriel Martinelli told a press conference he was so willing to sign a new deal at Arsenal that the club just need to get a pen. Very naive from him, but lovely to hear. And yet 7 weeks on, there has not yet been any announcement about a new contract for the Brazilian international. That's true, but rumors are that we're going to get over the line, but it's not over to the fat lady sings. Martinelli's situation is not unique. At the end of August, Bukayo Saka stated that he shared manager Mikel Arteta's confidence he would agree a new deal at the Emirates Stadium, yet for Arsenal fans, an increasingly anxious wait continues. Now, of course, it's anxious. You want to see your players tie down deals. It's a bit unique because it's not like Eddie Nketiah last season, Aubameyang when he signed a new deal, Mesut Ozil and Alexis Sanchez and any other thing past that, in a sense of, I do believe in William Saliba's contract, but we've been told where Saka and Martinelli are concerned, there's an option of another year. We all want to see them sign new deals, confirm their commitment to the manager, to the club and what they're doing. But these things take time. For Martinelli and Saka, looking at their advisors, you know, their agents are paid to get the best deal. Martinelli's importance has risen since he signed for this club, and mainly off the back of this season where he's made real significant progress, kind of first name on the team sheet sort of stuff. But Bukayo Saka has just been doing his thing. So their agents need to leverage that, get them the best terms, get them the best deal, you know, especially Saka's agent, because it feels like every 18 months we're with Saka and Saliba, obviously, you know, they're all international footballers. You know, obviously Martinelli is making headwinds where Brazil is concerned. Saka had a great tournament, one of the best players at the World Cup for England. And Saliba, although, you know, he didn't play too much, he's part of the new sort of age of Brazilian or French youth. So they need to get the best deals. And to be honest, if you're Arsenal, you want them to sign a 5-year deal in total. If I'm these players' agents, I'm trying to get 4 years with an option of another year, or really 3 with an option of 1+ year, because in the next 18 months, you're always going to be having to get new deals and things like that. And if their importance to the club have got to show it. So these things take time. You need to dot I's and cross T's, get appropriate bonuses and things like that. You know, Saka, Saliba, Martinelli, they're still at the naive stage of their career. When you see stuff like at 21 years of age, Martinelli is saying all they need to do is get a pen. That's great. It shows his commitment. But you got to remember, he's a young player in a young team that is doing their thing. You know, that will look a lot different if you're 26, 28, you haven't really achieved what you want to achieve, and you're looking at the squad and things like that. So we need to leverage that, tie them down. If they ever want to leave this football club, or we want to sell, or they want to try a new experience, you know, we're in a position to get top money that can be reinvested. Because these players, especially, we've seen players that are shitter than all 3 of these names I've said go for top money. So if one day comes that they want to leave, we can get bread. And also it tells potential incomings that we're doing this long-term thing. And I do like Arsenal's approach in the last 18 months of rewarding players. You know, we're going to get into Ramsdale with this article, but he was obviously going to sign a new deal. Ben White's probably in line to sign an improved deal, and probably some others as well, people. So the first line doesn't shock me. There is more. William Saliba is another in ongoing talks to extend his contract. Aaron Ramsdale's begun discussions over revised terms to reflect his status as #1 goalie. you know. And when Ramsdale signed, obviously we signed him to be long term to eventually eclipse Leno, but the man himself said he didn't expect to do it so quick. So it's a mark of progress for all three of them. You know, they've all Saka's going from strength to strength. Martinelli's really improving. Ramsdale's doing what he's doing. Saliba is, you know, we've turned the corner really. You know, 1 minute last summer people said, oh, he's going to leave and all these things. There are contract issues to attend to beyond the first team as well. Arsenal are expected to this week activate a 2-year option on promising midfielder Charlie Patino to prevent the 19-year-old's deal expiring at the end of the season. On the academy side, Arsenal face competition for the signatures of promising youngsters Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Anthony Lewis Skelly, two great players. You know, Miles reminds me of Dembele. Ethan has this swagger about him, and it'd be a shame that if we didn't tie these players down, because I believe by the time they're 19, they'll be kind of what you saw with Joe Willock, Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson, Saka. They'll be in and amongst the first team. I'm willing to bet my life on that. Away from their ability, they're two very good young men in terms of mentality. They have willingness to learn. You know, Miles especially as well, really. They have willingness to learn. They're very in touch with what's going on in the world. They're good human beings, and that's testament first and foremost to their family that raised them, and also Arsenal Football Club, who away from their family installing values. You know, we develop people first, footballers second, and they've got everything really. You know, Arsenal, Chelsea, all these clubs, we're going to lose promising players. We lost Yunus Musa, who was playing in the under-18s as a schoolboy, got a better offer from Valencia, quicker path to the first team, similar to Chelsea, who've let a lot of players go. But Musiala got a good offer from Bayern Munich. It's something that young footballers are going to be doing, as you've seen, really and truly. So it doesn't surprise me, especially with Ethan, how he's linked with all the other clubs. And that's what they need to do. They need to keep leveraging that to see what Arsenal's plans are for them and things like that, really. Inevitably, supporters wonder what's taking so long. In most of these incidences, it's believed Arsenal want to keep the player and the individual is happy to stay. So why the delay? Because these things take time through things we're discussing. The first thing to say is that the club is not negotiating directly with the player. Martinelli can say what he likes to the media, but when it comes to the details of his contract, he won't be the one doing the talking, and that wouldn't be sensible, really. You're a footballer, not an agent. Let your agent do what they're paid to do. The player can actually be fairly removed from the process, rightly so, with his rep in dialogue with sporting director Edu or head of football operations Richard Garlick. When a significant first team contract is being renegotiated, the likelihood is that some sort of face-to-face conversation between the player and the club's rep will take place. Usually the player will meet with Arteta and or Edu to discuss their respective expectations and assess intentions. This is an important part of the process. It's where buy-in is created. Wages and contract length are rarely part of these conversations. If there is a consensus that the club and the player wish to continue to work together, it indicates a willingness from both parties to compromise when negotiations reach crunch point. Of course, really, you know, there's a middle ground, really. Typically, the agents want to get the best deal. The club also want to keep the player and get the best deal. And typically, not isolated to Arsenal, pay less wages. It's a business. Pay less wages than us. If my man asks for 200K a week, a club is going to want to say, you know what, 130 and things like that. That's just negotiation. So these things take time, really. Neither party is going to get 100% what they want. It's about finding a compromise. So that actually isn't anything new. Bit boring so far with this article, especially because we know these things. But there's an informal wooing process that is almost entirely separate from the hard numbers. Arsenal's task here is to make every player at every level feel like a priority, rightly so. That is a difficult balancing act when there's only so much time and staff resource. A gesture like inviting Ethan and Lewis Skelly on mid-season first team training camp can go a long way. To go with, especially Ethan, who's mixed it up with the first team training, obviously played against Brentford. A word from Arteta, if he makes the time, carries or even more weight. First team players like Saka and Martinelli will be well aware of their place in the manager's plans. Others may need more convincing that there is a clear pathway for them. And I think, interestingly, he's injured at the moment, but we've seen Ethan, Miles, Saka, Martinelli, Saliba, Aaron Ramsdale. Not a single word on Reece Nelson there. So it is what it is. Once those informal conversations have taken place, there's still a long way to go. Even if the players indicated a clear willingness to stay, the numbers, the terms, and the details of the contract are all yet to be sorted. This process will be handled by the player's rep. The job of the agent is to get the player the best deal he possibly can. The job of Arsenal staff is to get the club the best deal they possibly can. Inevitably, this invites brinksmanship. Speak to people in football, and they'll tell you that sometimes the delays are a vital part of negotiations. Neither party wants to look too keen, too desperate, too willing. A missed phone call or a couple of days of radio silence can be effective power plays for both sides. That is true. As much as the club is trying to keep the player, it's important to remember that the agent is trying to keep them too. They're only a finite number of contract renegotiations a footballer will have in their career, and especially when you're at your early to mid stage. So Saka, it's a bit changed in the modern day because, you know, with this potential thing, and from 16 to 18, you're the bee's knees. But Saka's come through. Saka is what, in his early 20s. He's going, and now since he signed his last deal, he is one of the poster boys for a club and country, one of the, you know, best English national players. So again, you want to leverage that really and truly. And then when he gets to 26, it's a next new deal. And as you know, really, that's why you typically see 30-year-olds now. They're trying to really just leave for free on free contracts and not be tied down. So, you know, these young players, for their agents, they're breadwinners. They're probably keeping the lights on. There's a lot of agencies that have a bunch of players, but they only get real good contracts for the top Premier League players, and that's because they're keeping the lights on. You got to remember, this is an agent's business as well. You know, he's got a bunch of clients. I'm sure if you look at Saka's agents got Balogun, Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson. I'm so sure Jadon Sancho, who he got paid a handsome sum, you know, when he moved to Man United, etc., etc. Saliba's agent must have a couple of them. Not too sure on Martinelli's, but there must be in it. So it makes sense, really. There's nothing new there, but it's facts. For a player like Saliba, there's effectively a sliding scale in place. The longer the club want him to commit for, the more they have to pay. This is effectively the inverse of what tends to happen with older players, where the length of contract is more desirable than the basic pay. Of course, long-term stability. But in the current day, you're seeing people at 30 just run down their deals and leverage that. One of the reasons Saliba's contract remains unsigned for now is that Arsenal are not offering a wage his rep consider, I guess, good enough with a long deal the club want to tie him to, and so talks go on. Even more, once personal terms are agreed, there is an issue of agent fees to consider. It's not unheard of for the players' terms to be agreed in their entirety, but the contract signing to be delayed as the club and agent haggle over commission. And he wants to eat from both sides. He wants to get his commission for negotiating the deal with the club. Obviously, he gets a lot of, you know, he gets a decent fee off negotiating the contract for the players. And also in many years, there's a lot sort of yearly fee, not necessarily 10%, but let's just say 5% of every year that this contract goes on. And obviously, if you negotiate a high fee, you're going to get a higher yearly sum. This is the agent work. It's big business, really. There's a lot of good agents out there as well, if I'm honest. This is an important part of negotiations that should not be overlooked. The perception is that Arsenal should be in a hurry to get these deals done, but there are two factors that offer them some security. First off, in many cases, they have contract options. Martinelli's contract runs until 2024, but Arsenal have the situation markedly less urgent from their perspective. Saliba and Saka's contracts run no longer than 2024, even with extensions, which makes their situations more pressing. Even with Man United, you've seen they've a bunch of players. You know, they've activated, I believe, Luke Shaw, Deluded, Rashford, Fred. There might be a next one. Contracts to run another year. They haven't done the same with De Gea, because De Gea is their highest paid player, or was at the time when he signed that deal. Maybe they say, you know what, reduce terms, or we look for a new number one. Again, we've got to remember, as much as I hate it, because football is about the fans and the love of the game and things, but it is a business. There's too much money in this, and you've got to remember, if man are going to give, I don't know, Saka 150k, how much are the club making off Saka, whether that's his marketability, whether that's what he does on a football field, etc. Players are getting peanuts considering what the business of football is, really. You know, again, I hate the term about companies and things, but we got to remember it is a company aspect as well, people. Even then, Arsenal afforded some measure of protection by the transfer window calendar. Clubs know that they can't lose a player outside of January or the summer, and this means that negotiations between those windows can drag. And that's true. You know, Arsenal got to find a replacement for Jesus or confirm Mudryk. So it's not that this isn't a priority. There's only so much people can do at one time. It's partly human nature to work to deadlines. On the final day of the window, a contract can be hammered out in a matter of hours. Outside of that, it tends to drift. It is also worth pointing out that every week a club stalls on increasing a player's pay is a week where they can save money. If their confident agreement will be reached, it is more expensive to get there quickly, which is true. There are other practical considerations. You know, going back to Reece Nelson, he wants to stay. You know, his name isn't hot on the streets and things like that. It's not that he won't be able to find a club, but it's not like if Saka said, I'm running. It's not like if Saka's contract was running down in a matter of months. And obviously, as we said, them three all went to the World Cup. Whilst this needed This needed necessity provided an obstacle to talks. Many agents traveled to the region for the tournament, and Arsenal held a training camp based in Dubai, which senior personnel attended. There was a collective desire not to disrupt the focus of players during the tournament. Now that the players are back with Arsenal, it is expected talks will accelerate. Many of these issues are quite general. They'll be familiar at every club, but is there something that means Arsenal moves slower than most? There are three parts to squad building: recruitment, retention, and selling. Some in football feel that while Arsenal have proven themselves effective recruiters, when it comes to the other two elements, there's still room for improvement. Yeah, I think in the last 18 months, 2 years, we're doing a lot better, but we're going against years of doing it wrong, really. Tying people down to big wages and we struggle to move them off, reacting too late with committing people to new deals, etc., etc. So it makes sense, people. So yeah, it's true. Dealing with Arsenal can be more protracted and sometimes more frustrating experience than haggling with certain other Premier League clubs. The primary reason for this is process. Any contract offer Arsenal intend to make must be approved by the board before it can be put to a player or their rep. This can be a positive thing. It means there's an oversight on football business from those that govern the club. It can, however, slow things down. There are other clubs where chief executives are given greater license to be flexible with the figures, but we do this collaborative thing. No one at Arsenal seems particularly panicked by their ongoing contract talks. They appear to feel, particularly in the case of first-team stars like Saka, Saliba, Martinelli, and Ramsdale, that there's enough goodwill to see these negotiations through to a positive conclusion. Ultimately, any deal will be a compromise between the club's preference and the players' demands. But the World Cup is now over. The transfer window is almost open and the clock is ticking. An agent would not be doing his job if he was not at least prepared to listen to offers from elsewhere. As long as these deals remain unsigned, fans will worry. When it comes to player retention, Arsenal have a considerable to-do list. It's time to start ticking some more items off. And that's true. That was a long article, but it is what it is. Gary Jacob of the Times has said Mikel Arteta is ready to spend heavily next month to ensure the club's, well, better yet, Arsenal's title challenge is not derailed by injuries, notably to Gabriel Jesus, his main striker. Arsenal has spent approximately a net of 300 million in the past 3 summers, but have the financial flexibility to commit again after reducing their wage bill. Again, Arsenal, Arteta, one thing I like, and Edu, spend correctly in it. You know, the talent ID has been better. Clubs are always going to get signings wrong. You're never going to have a 100% success rate, but 50 million on Ben White, it's worked out. 50 million. Apologies, people. There's someone on the door. 1 second. Technical difficulties, people. I don't want to miss this. I think that's my Amazon delivery. Where's my keys? For God's sake. Sorry, folks. It needs to happen. All right, 1 sec, man. Oh, for fuck's sake. Where's my keys? My door is locked. 1 second, folks. Hey, bro, nothing's ever perfect in this life, people. I'm so sorry. Nothing's ever perfect, but I can't miss this for Christmas. So yeah, sorry about that, but we need to keep that. It keeps these videos authentic. As I was saying, we need to spend correctly, and it's not about just spending money for the sake of spending money. We need to spend correctly, and I do like that with Arteta and Arsenal. You know, 50 million on Ben White. There was criticism. You're seeing why he was bought. Ramsdale, of course, 45 on Jesus, Zinchenko. You know, Vieira's going to, in my opinion, show his quality. Also, retention, to stay off what we just said, retention, giving Saka, Martinelli, all these guys new deals, and some have signed new deals and gone from strength to strength. Bringing in Zinchenko and Tomiyasu, and I had to run up the stairs, and many other things. So it's about spending correctly, whether a player costs £1 or £100 million in it. So spend correctly. Of course, when I hear that we're ready to spend heavily, it gasses me. What? Striker, winger, this, that, and the third? Of course, because there's many reasons as to why we had, in many ways, a good season last year, but also a shaky one. 1 point has to be January of what we didn't do in terms of bringing in players, in terms of maybe letting some go as well, people. So that gives me confidence because we've got a chance of a lifetime. 5 points clear of City at the top of the table in December at the time of making this vid. Whether that happens or not, but getting back in the Champions League, and maybe next year if we don't win the title, I don't look at the league table, people. We could go even stronger and get closer to City, as almost as impossible as that is, because you got Haaland, Alvarez, just the spending power and all that they got. But in life, they say the apprentice outshines the master. So hopefully Mikel Arteta can get one on his former big homie, big bro, in Pep Guardiola. So we'll have to see. We saw this yesterday, but we're linked with Rabiot again as his contract runs down. Obviously, he's French. We have a massive history with French players at Arsenal. His contract is running down. It's mainly been focused, the recruitment in the last paper talks has been more focused on wide areas, which we failed to bring in the summer, like a central midfielder. And obviously with Mudryk looking like we're getting there, with Jesus' injury, striker sort of thing. But we got to remember, centre mid is an area we need to address in the short, medium and long term, Xhaka, Partey, El Nene, more so the two names I've said before, can be here for a number of years now. But at the same time, when you look at our defense, Ramsdale, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, Tierney, Tomiyasu, anyone else I've missed out, they're all in their early to mid-20s. Up front, you've got, in further forward positions, Smith Rowe, Vieira, Odegaard, Martinelli, Saka, Smith Rowe, etc. When you look at our midfield, there is a lot of question marks because Xhaka clearly don't want to go nowhere. He's doing very well. He's a vital player. He gives us experience, which is exception to our rule where we're doing this youngster thing. Partey is Thomas Partey as well. El Nene can come in and plug a gap, but they're kind of here for the present. There's not really long-termism in other areas, so we need to. I mean, he's 27, so he's a couple of years younger, and he would provide experience. But again, his mum is difficult to do negotiations with. I think Rabiot's a good player, but I'd take a pass. The wages and the length of contract he might want to negotiate, at 27, do you want to sign a 5-year deal? Or do you want to sign a 3-year deal? We're at 30. You might be able to try a new experience or negotiate one final payday or leave for free, really. Juventus contract's running down, so that's probably where it is. Rabiot was spoken of wanting to move to the Premier League. He almost moved to Manchester United, but it broke down due to personal terms. Juventus might be willing to sell him in January to not lose him on a free. And there's a regular theme with some of our players we're linked with. Bennacer and Milinkovic-Savic, they're contracted until 2024. Telemans is contracted until 2023. So contract seems to be a regular theme of when we're being linked with players, people. So you have to draw whatever conclusion you can draw here. Arsenal given green light as 88 million star happy to move to the Emirates. Arsenal have been given the green light by Mudryk to ramp up their interest, people. Allegedly, Fabrizio Romano has said specifically, Arsenal have the green light on the player side because Mudryk would be happy to join Arsenal. He would be really happy to try this Premier League experience. So now it's on the clubs. Let's see how the negotiation will go. And I mean, that's how Arsenal typically do things. From what we see just by reading papers, we talk to the players' camp, see if they're keen to join Mikel Arteta. Indirectly, Arteta via Edu and Cole would tell the player how they tie into the short, medium and long term, indirectly the length of contract and just basically personal terms, and then agree a fee with the club in it. But again, that's the most crucial thing. You don't agree a fee with Shakhtar, we don't get the player in it. How many times in life do you see personal terms agreed but moves break down? I'm not too sure. Not sure what that Daily Mail article is supposed to be. But yeah, apparently Arsenal signing a striker is a possibility in January at the Emirates. Allegedly, people, says Dean Jones. Specifically, of course, there's a possibility Arsenal sign a striker, but they're going to be cautious. The message I keep getting from people around this is that this is not the time to panic. And I mean, when there's every reason to panic, which on the face of it you could, because we ain't got Jesus, you have to keep calm. I believe they're trying to assess, if they don't know Jesus is, like, how long you're actually going to be out for. And then if there's a situation, whether that be a loan, whether that would be a player that ties into our system, maybe there's a player that's an exception to the rule, like João Felix. He's the one thing is he's young and he can play in a couple of roles, but he'd cost a shitload amount of money, pardon my French. Just for argument's sake, if they said, this isn't something we're going to do in January, but this is something we can't turn down, then do it really and truly. And again, rightly or wrongly, I do like how Arteta and Edu haven't done what their predecessors for no reason. And with Jesus' injury, there must be a list of striker targets, because if we didn't get Jesus, we'd have to sign someone else. And Arteta's not an idiot. In August, we had to have sat there and said, if Jesus picks up a knock, Martinelli can go up front. You got Smith Rowe there, maybe Reece Nelson there, Eddie Nketiah, this and that. Balogun at the time didn't go on loan. Does he go out on loan? Can we recall him? Is there, whatever? Obviously, we need goals. We need to keep scoring goals. But it sounds stupid, but scoring goals isn't necessarily the most important thing of a Mikel Arteta striker. You know, it's more like the pressing and all them metrics off the ball. So if it's not necessarily goals, surely the casting net of potential recruitments is wider. So maybe there's something unique. Like, I've never watched that youth who signed for Chelsea, that Fofana brother, but he's in his early 20s. You know, kind of, is there something you could do in that? I don't know. Is there a loan deal you could take advantage of? Anything but Cristiano Ronaldo, which sounds mad to say that about one of the best players ever. Arsenal really like Ferran Torres as they continue to assess their options ahead of January. And that more leverages the fact that apparently Xavi's fed up with him. I don't know. They really like Ferran Torres, and they clearly believe he might become available because they inquired about him in the summer as well. So if they're sniffing around him again now, they sense that something is up. Away from that, Arsenal can bring player back to the Emirates by triggering €50 million clause, not exactly out of reach for the Gunners. Back again, linking us with Bennacer, who should have never left. Him, Gnabry, and Yunus Musa, we should have saw a lot more of them at the Emirates if we did. And again, his contract talks are running on with and also Rafa Leao. There was talk for Fabrizio Romano yesterday. Check out the YouTube playlist, smash the like button, people, where he said that they're moving towards offering, you know, the Algerian international now, French youth international, a contract. So again, I'm very pessimistic on anything that links us with players out of Italy, but we'll have to see, people. Arsenal are among his suitors and could take the Algerian international away from the San Siro by triggering his 50 million release clause, which is only applicable for foreign clubs. I'm not too sure. Again, if his contract's running down, would you want to sanction 50 million in January or in the summer, where if it continues, you can get him to sign for maybe even half that, maybe even, you know, something along those lines, but that might be too long. 50 million euros for a 25-year-old, and Bennacer, just on what he brings to the table, will give us a lot, but we'll have to see. So we'll have to see. After holding talks with the player during the Dubai tour, they had a meeting with his agent, Enzo Rinola, at the club's headquarters on Wednesday. Bennacer has a decision to make on whether to sign a new deal at Milan or make a move to the Premier League, where Arsenal have already made contact with his reps. So draw of that what you will, people. Apparently, you know, we've been given an update on Ben White. There's rumors that something happened around his I don't want to speculate, but around his mother, which was the personal reasons for him leaving, which, first things first, we hope Mama White and everybody else is in good health, and don't want to speculate in it, just good health to everybody and things like that, really. This was, them two were more for my own reading. And again, Mikel Arteta on injuries, people. With Gabriel Jesus, it is very difficult to put a time frame on his recovery. It was a significant injury, and knowing him, I prefer to not give dates away, which again, he might actually privately know how long Jesus is out for and doesn't want to say anything in the public, or they might be willing to assess and wait in how he reacts to his recovery so they can know if he is returning in February, in March, in April, and how they act. What I would say, if everybody's fit, there is a case to bring in another striker. Anyways, it will take some time for sure. Obviously, he's going through surgery, so that's the extent of the injury. He then talked about Smith Rowe's picked up a minor setback, but he's now close to starting to train again. And Reece Nelson will be out for a couple of weeks as well, people. So it's a bit of a bummer there. Should we, you know, to round this up, let's see what else we've been linked with on goal.com. Arteta confirms Arsenal plans to sign players in January. We are looking to strengthen the team. This squad still doesn't have the luxury of not maximizing every single window. We have to do that because it's really important. We have to get the right profile. It has to be the right player to take us to the next level. Once again, the Gunners to shell out 44 million for Ismail Bennacer, says that. We went over that. Arteta's avoid commenting on Martinelli's contract, people. No news on Gabriel's new deal now. We're extremely happy with him. You can keep asking him in the next few weeks. Amen. Once again, we've seen the Rabiot and Ferran Torres links. Brighton don't want to sell Alex McAllister, who's obviously had a great World Cup, won the tournament and drawn a lot of admirers. Vlahovic's agent hasn't ruled out a January move away, although when I look, I can't see specifically what his agent has or has not said, people. This is funny season. You know, we've been linked with bringing back Danny Ceballos to the carpet. So draw whatever conclusions you want. Again, people, appreciative for all of you lot that tuned in, especially those of you who let me go and get my delivery of Amazon so I can wrap my Christmas presents. Allow me. Most importantly, I appreciate all the support. I'm very appreciative on it. One love to everybody who's following on all the socials, who's hit the like button, who's participated in the chat, who's commented, who's watched the ads, and just supporting the channel, man. This is our platform. And again, as we get to the end of the year, it's very heartwarming when we consider the journey that we started many years ago, the journey we started at the start of this year, and where we've got to in the year end. So yeah, bigger and better, man. So yeah, I hope everyone's well and safe. Hope you're all in good spirits. Hope your personal and private goals are still progressing. Make sure you have a great day and a great end to the week and a great week next week. Once again, thank you for supporting my content. Check out the YouTube playlist, smash the like button, turn on your engagement, your turn on your notifications, and boost the YouTube algorithm and ultimately the engagement. On that note, though, you lot stay blessed, stay safe. This video has ran a lot longer than I thought, 10 minutes actually, but it's always an excuse to be with you lot. You lot stay blessed, stay safe. I'm out.
There's always just that active red flag defending. I think it's like